Good, Matt. How are you?
See you. How's the weather in the Bay Area?
It's ugly today.
Ugly.
Up rain showers.
All right, it's beautiful.
Oh,
Well, in Southern Cal. So, Marty, I'd like to thank you, and I'd like to thank IvyFON for allowing us to be here today. Obviously, Buckholder, amazing that you allowed us to take over your conference room for the next 2 days. So, a lot of gratitude there. Up the street this week was the Mike Milken Conference. So we all know that Mike Milken puts together an amazing conference. And one of the stats that came out this morning from CNBC that there was $2 trillion of family office money sitting in that room listening to those presentations. So not too dissimilar for what we're doing here today, which is to really just guide family offices into the right direction to understand a little bit more about what's going on in commercial real estate, top down, bottom up, east to west. So we've got a couple of great speakers today, and I see Marty here. I see obviously Ken behind me. So my name is Matthew Kessler, and I represent Pace Equity. We have Kassie Smith to my right, represents GS Global Development, and then obviously Michael Zerman from Buckholder. So thank you very much again for hosting us. And we got Roger Brandt, and that's Roger. Okay, great, Roger. I'm really glad that you were able to join us today as well from NewOak. So, I think some of the things we should think about today is just really, how to look at interest rates, how to look at the market, how to look at how we're affected by, some of the changes we've seen in the regional banks from Signature Bank. And, we're seeing just so many changes in terms of what happened to the banks up in Silicon Valley. And then we just had First Republic being taken out by obviously JP Morgan. So that middle market for lending, that little middle market for interest rates has changed greatly. So what we want to do today is make sure that we get through all of those. So I'm going to make a couple introductions. Kassie to my left is the CEO of KS Global Development. I think for Kassie, being in the business for over 27 years, not only as a developer, as a broker, as putting together master plan communities in Las Vegas and the West Coast, and now a 270-acre master plan community that she's putting together in Florida, really sets her apart as somebody that can take on a project from beginning to end and get it into the air, right? That's really what you want to do. You're taking dirt, you're putting up a project, and you're getting it into the air. Ken Nitzberg behind me, Devon Storage. I know Ken very well. He and I have done a couple of great presentations together. He's the chairman and CEO of Devon Storage. 35 years, he founded the business in the mid-'80s. And I think what sort of set Ken apart is that all of the capital that Ken receives into his business is institutional capital. And when you have institutional capital coming into the storage business, it tells you one thing. It has a long duration. It's looking for 20, 30-year timeframes for the type of money that invests with Ken. Ken's business is currently valued at about $1.25 billion. He has operations across about 30 different states. He has 103 self-storage facilities. So Ken, in his own right, has a better feel on the pulse of the economy than most economists do. Why? If I'm leaving my dormitory and I'm moving to a new facility, and maybe as an adult now, I'm pulling and taking things out of storage. If I'm running into COVID, I'm either shutting down my office and people are also getting fired. And as a result, they're opening up storage. If an area in the Sun Belt is gravitating to new people coming in because their state just isn't working for them, he sees that right away. He sees different types of storage facilities filling up quickly and others in the country leaving. So he's got a really good handle on what's going on. And he's going to talk a lot about that with us. And obviously, Michael Zerman. Michael at Buckholder has a really nice practice. Michael's been in the business for more than 30 years, and he's right up our alley in terms of what he does. I mean, his law practice is on real estate transactions, purchase, sale, mortgage, financing, and construction agreements. So he really understands the guts of every time you and I put together a purchase order to buy a building. We've got a term sheet, we've got a memorandum, we've got a pitch book. I mean, you got to have a lawyer in your back pocket if you're a family office. So those of you that are family offices and you're in the room with us today and you're listening, you must have a law firm at your side at every contract, every document that you're putting together. And then finally, we've got Roger, who's also up on the screen from NewOak. NewOak is sort of a new firm, I think, for me to understand, what they do in terms of debt and equity financing for real estate and how they work in the market. So I'm going to really let Roger sort of dig into that and they do a little bit of banking. And I know that the principal of the firm, spent time at BlackRock, so he understands the Aladdin system. He understands what's going on in terms of really, what a Bloomberg-like system looks like for real estate. So I'm going to allow my friend Ken to kick us off at Devon Self-Storage. So Ken, why don't you give us a few minutes on your background, your firm, and really sort of how you see the real estate market today?
Sure. Well, taking your last part first, we're strictly in the self-storage business. So speaking to the whole real estate market, I'd be way out of my class there, as it were. But we are in the storage business. There's somewhere between 55,000 and 60,000 facilities around the country. Nobody knows for sure because there's no way to count them. We rank about number 18th in size. The top 5 firms are all public companies. Like you said, Matthew, we operate 102 stores today. We have 18 more under construction, about 45,000 tenants, all on 30-day rental agreements. So there's no one tenant can bust our chops, but there's lots of little moving parts that you better get right or you'll be in a world of hurt. We operate in 25 states, so about 7 million square feet of space. What can I tell you? The COVID years of half of 20 and 21 and 22 were the best 3 years of our industry's history across the board. The industry was experiencing 20% a year rent increase rates, the highest occupancies ever. Now we're in 23 and things are coming back to a more reasonable level, but they're still much better than they were in 19, 18, 17, what have you. So I'm very optimistic about the market. As you indicated, we are not an owner of facilities. We're a management company. We own little pieces, 3, 4, 5, 10%. But one of our clients, for example, is the state of Texas Employees Retirement System with $30 billion. We can't go pari passu with them. We're not in that same cash league. So we put in 5 and they put in 95. So we deal with a lot of large institutions. And we also deal with a lot of high net worth family offices who decided that storage is an asset class they want to take a hard look at. And then they look at it and say, wait a minute. If I have a 100,000 square foot, industrial building, I got 4 tenants, they're on 10-year leases. They mail me a check every month. And all I have to do as the owner is make sure the landscaper shows up once a week and the janitor once a night. If I have a 100,000 square foot storage facility, it has 800 tenants on 30-day leases that turn over 75% a year. It's a much different management business. So they figured out that if they're going to do it, they need to have a professional partner.
Right.
So that's what we do.
And that's why, I like your business structure, because if I'm a family office and I'm now generation 3 and my parents were in the business, they've got 15 facilities, I'm not in that business. I'm doing something else. That's why I'd rather turn those businesses over to you to manage, or you're welcome to buy us out, because I know that's part of your business model.
Sure. We buy properties all the time. We build properties. Like I said, we have 18 under construction today. We're not a ground up developer. That's very, very difficult in the storage business today because cities don't want us. Cities want industry or real estate that'll provide a lot of jobs or a lot of tax base. We don't do either. That's why we have way too much retail because they provide jobs until they all go under. What we like to do is what's called a conversion, or to use the politically correct term, adaptive reuse. So we buy failed assets. We buy them cheap because the owner is distressed, not the real estate. My favorite company in the whole world ever is Kmart. Every time we think we found the last dead Kmart to buy and convert, we found 5 more. We have 5 of them under construction right now because they're perfectly located. They're retail locations on retail arterials, big old flat boxes, very easy to work with. They're our ideal partner. But we've done everything. We've converted big box retail, strip retail, office, car dealerships. We're doing a hospital in Florida right now that went under. You name it, as long as the demographics are there and we can buy it at a price that allows us to convert it, then we're in business. So we're not top-down driven, we're bottom-up driven. We find deals wherever they happen to be and buy them, convert them, manage them, fill them, and at some point, depending on what our partner wants, sell them.
So let me take the reins back from you for a moment and let me, introduce again, Kassie Smith to my left, who's the CEO and founder of KS Global Development. So Kassie, being in this business, as you've been as a broker, you've been as a developer, you're doing master plan communities. You worked in Vegas for close to 20 years putting in together master plan communities there. Tell us a little about your business and maybe one or two of the properties or projects that you're working on.
Okay, great. Thank you. I got to say today, though, has been really a great day to listen to all the different viewpoints, asset classes, business models, and I think I have to say that I was blessed to be in Las Vegas for the amount of years that I was, 27 years actually, and I launched my company at a boom time in the late 1996, actually, we launched, and quickly. So my background is I'm not afraid of a lot of land, and for maybe today's market, I know a lot of developers are, but we love land. We know what to do with it. We know how to get it. We've figured out how to get it off the ground, and I think that that's the key, and that's what we're really talking about. Interestingly, he's talking about self-storage space. So, when we look at what we're doing in our space as ground up master plan development, and we swing toward mixed use, which is on the resort side. Okay, so there's always a component of large residential, hotel, amenities. But lately, we are adding boxes. So when I look at our model, it has to check all of our boxes to get funding, for obviously, and then to the market we're building in. But we're adding additional. In Florida, you had mentioned, per se, we're adding self-storage to our mixed-use
I
development.
didn't know that. Okay.
Okay, so we see the boom in that. Also, renewable energy. So taking some of our acreage to make sure that we have that, the renewable energy component. We're doing that in the Caribbean. We're doing actually a wellness clinic on the non-invasive medical side. So there's a lot of things that we're adding to our toolbox and our playbook that is easy because it's obviously putting us more in the forefront to be funded.
And how do you raise your money? Where does the assets come to you? Is it institutional money, family funds money? When you see a really great project, you're putting together your cap structure. Are you going out to brokers? You're going out to lenders? The sponsor is going to put this together. How do you build your cap structure?
So back in Vegas, back in those days when institutional funding was available to us, it is no longer. Okay, not in my space, and that's okay. Because right now it's exciting. I mean, we are not having any problem, really. But I've always been very open-minded about looking at alternative options to build our cap stack and lending, and adding things like PACE. PACE is huge to me. GIFT that came on, and now they're quickly adding on all the states. So CDD bonds. Other EV5, which right now maybe isn't great, but
we talked about EV5 earlier today.
Yeah,
sure.
But I see that we've touched on that before, and so all these opportunities to add into our capital stack hugely go we do go to the brokers, obviously, as well as the intermediaries, and we really target the family offices.
Right.
So the private equity, family offices, and it's looking different now too. The family offices are obviously opening their eyes to how they can diversify, and not just on the equity side, so on the debt side. So we understand that. And, I was a general contractor, real estate broker, architect. So coming up and really getting into the funding and lending space and CRE space is not something I ever planned, but you know what, as a developer, you've got to get it out of the ground and you've got to understand how to do it.
So let me ask you just a quick follow-up question, and then I'm going to turn to Michael. Talk about your staff. How are you staffed? How many people on the staff? And what does each person do as a master plan developer? I know you've got that 270-acre project, which I know is over $1 billion on phase one. How are you staffed?
So when I was in Las Vegas, we were involved with a lot of, city center. We were 9 years at Lake Las Vegas Resort. That was 360 acres, huge, great project. Trump Towers. It was a very exciting time. City center. And I had a big staff of about over 2 offices, 50, and they were project managers, architects, construction managers. We did our own in-house purchasing. We held the paper, we did procurement. It's changed. Once I sold that company in 2007, lucky.
Good timing.
I really kind of paired it into a key team. And so I really position ourselves more as master developer and sponsor. So we come in and we put that master plan. I know visionary is probably a big word, and especially in the finance space, that could mean a lot of things. But I think that's an important role because we're looking at opportunities, deal flow. We're taking it from acquisition of the assets all the way through entitlements and putting a great vision to it, and putting which is important, looking at all the opportunities for revenue stream. So, and I think that's what's important about our projects, going to market, going out to funders, is sitting and saying, look, here's all the opportunity for the revenue stream. Maybe it's not a loan to value on the asset existing,
Right.
but as that project is stabilized, looking at that loan, that value on that project once it does, and how we've gotten, 30% ROI.
Did you hear that? 30% ROI. So, all right.
Push
So
for it.
obviously the numbers are working for you in the last 30 years. So Michael, Buckholder Law Firm, you obviously a partner, you're
That's
obviously a
that's
shareholder.
annualized ROI. IRR, right?
So
All
you're
right.
a partner, you're a shareholder of the firm. And, obviously this being a real estate panel, that's your background. Tell us a little bit about, why real estate law for you? How'd you get there? Why'd you choose real estate as a deep and narrow focus? And talk a little bit to the family offices that are listening today and why it's so important on every contract and every memorandum that you put your signature on, having a lawyer in your corner.
Well, boy, that's a lot to talk about. I guess being a lawyer, I was really not particularly interested in being a litigator and being very adversarial. I did some of that early in my career, and it just wasn't my thing. I like the fact that as a transactional lawyer, it's more a collaborative process where the objective is basically come to an agreement at the end, and not to fight each other and beat each other into submission. So I think it's a kind of a constructive process that I enjoy, and that's kind of how I get to it. I did have a background in the real estate business before I was a lawyer as
Nice.
well, so that had something to do with it. So that's the short answer to that question. Why do family offices need lawyers? Many things can go wrong. I mean, over my career, I've seen, too many things to describe. I mean, just every deal is different. And I think sometimes I think I've seen it all over a period of 30 years. And then I see something new and I say, you can't believe what I saw today go wrong. And, if everything goes right and people perform the way they say they're going to perform, maybe you wouldn't need lawyers. But I think in the world we live in, that's not how things go. Things go awry. People don't perform the way that you expect them to, or people's expectations are different. And that's one of the reasons why it's good to reduce their intentions into a writing. So you can say, okay, this is what I expect of you. This is what you expect of me. And you can head off all your problems that way, but maybe you can head off 80% of them or 90% of them if you think about them in advance and deal with them in advance.
Right. I'd rather bring you in the beginning than when I'm in trouble at the backside. So I want you by my side from, LOI all the way through to completion. So that part we definitely get as being developers, master plan developers, putting together storage units, buying and selling from family offices. And so we understand how integral you are to, the family office business. And, when you have a family office and they come to you and they sit down and they say, okay, we're hiring you. Do they normally bring you 3 or 4 projects, or are they just putting you on retainer when it's time for them to go? They know that you're in their corner.
I would say with the family offices, it's more sporadic. It's not like there's a steady pipeline like you might have with a commercial bank or something like that. And often because they're family offices, they're often initiated by family events. So for example, you have estate planning transfers, or you have divorces. And a lot of times these are people with significant assets, and transfers need to occur. And again, with forethought, these things can be accomplished with no taxation. There's all types of tax issues that you have to be cognizant of going into them. And also with, again, you know, you have things like title insurance. You don't want to invalidate a title insurance policy based on a deed that you transfer without thought. As a matter of fact, again, one thing that I see a lot is from especially estate planning lawyers, they'll just record deeds, basically guessing on the state of title. And what I try to do is look at the original title policy, get a current preliminary report, get an endorsement of the original title policy. So you're not just relying on me to guess right. You know, if I'm wrong, you've got title insurance. And you can't, often these deals come to me, yeah, like you said, after they've already gone wrong, and it might have been 5 or 6 or 10 years ago, and it's much more difficult to put them back together again. At that
I'm
point.
hiring you on the front end, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay, so Roger, welcome. You're in New York, is that right?
Yeah, thank you. Great to be here virtually.
I've got a little feel of your firm, so, you know,
Sure.
and that, you know, your firm is in corporate finance and, you know, a little bit of debt and equity financing, and that, you know, you play on all the sort of different parts of the real estate market. Give us a feel for NewOak. I mean, you know, I'm new to your firm. Give the family office a sense of, okay, who is NewOak, and what is it that you do, and why would a family engage you?
Sure. So NewOak Capital, founded by Ron Davari, former head of structured products at BlackRock. It's really sort of 3 silos, I guess. NewOak Capital Markets is the broker dealer. NewOak Advisory does all the non-FINRA capital raising in the US and all the capital raising overseas. And then NewOak Asset Management is the RIA and has a number of portfolio companies that NewOak is involved in. So we tend to sort of be across all over the place, frankly. We have, just to name a few, we have a couple of venture startups, consumer finance, early wage access, winding down after successful end of life, a super jumbo mortgage fund for residential real estate, standing up a trade finance vehicle. And then right now, we're also looking to stand up a DST platform. We like DSTs actually right now. We think the DST buyer, you know, a 1031 exchange buyer is not necessarily sensitive to interest rates. We think the current environment favors all cash buyers. So we like that. And we're busy standing that up, and then kind of looking around, given our background in debt, in structured products, etc. We are looking around at what's going on with banks, the office space, etc., and kind of starting to pick through that and see if we don't find some opportunities, which I think are starting to show up.
So it sounds like to me, Roger, you're very opportunistic. Your firm will move in the direction of where interest rates take you, move in the direction of where real estate takes you. If there's, you know, broken paper out there, broken debt out there, broken deals out there, that, you know, maybe this money from family offices, you know, you will use it to go in and be opportunistic and maybe, you know, buy the debt, control the debt, sell the debt, or maybe just do it in a fund. Is that why a family office would come to you?
Yeah, I mean, we have, yeah, that's one component. We do have a broker dealer, so obviously we are working on behalf of clients on various deals. So we could be reaching out to the family offices in that respect. And then we have a partnership with a platform that's sort of newly inked, that's doing continuation funds, sort of going in sort of a low fee structure, where the RIA or family office can invest alongside major institutional investors on a continuation fund. So, and then on the real estate side, my background's real estate. I love real estate, and I think you know, being able to step in when there is distress is sort of the right time. If you have the cash to do it, it's a good time to get into different strategies.
Yeah, we absolutely agree with you. I think the people we have on this panel today absolutely agree. And we all know today that the Federal Reserve came out, they raised the rate a quarter point. You know, the problem that we're seeing with Signature Bank and, you know, Silicon Valley Bank and, you know, First Republic is that equity is the foundation of a bank. When the equity leaves the bank, the foundation crumbles. So, you know, in all three of those instances, as soon as the equity left the bank started to crumble. And, you know, the Fed didn't want to really step in and nobody wanted to rescue them. And obviously, you know, two were shut down and JP Morgan came in and swooped in First Republic. It'll be very interesting to see how that works. You know, for us as a firm, you know, I'm at Pace Equity. PACE stands for Property Assessed Clean Energy. We're a balance sheet lender. So we have our own investors. They're all institutions, they're all life companies, they're all large family offices, because we put out loans that are 350 basis points above the 10-year treasury. So if I'm putting out money anywhere in the 6.5% in the cap structure of a real estate deal, I become a really interesting firm to come to because we're lending our own money. We don't have to go out to other lenders and look for it. So as a balance sheet lender, you know, we bring really interesting ideas to the product. Meaning there, you know, for instance, it's 30-year money. And when you have 30-year money and you're a lender, it becomes very interesting for a borrower. And as a borrower, you're not paying your interest back to me. It's a property tax. So twice a year, it's a tax assessment. And the city comes to you and sends you a bill for your PACE loan. If you decide to sell your building and you're a PACE, have PACE on the building, a commercial PACE loan on the building, the loan stays with the building. It's non-recourse. It doesn't travel with the developer. So developers love it because they can go out like Kassie or others, get a really interesting loan at 30 years, get it in the 6% mark, pay her property tax or tax assessment twice a year, sell the asset in 9 or 10 years, and the new owner now keeps the PACE loan on the books. So it makes it very easy for someone to build a cap structure and move forward. And the other really interesting part about PACE, and we'll talk about it later as we talk about cap structure, is, you know, let's say that we put together a building across the street here in Los Angeles. Well, I wasn't a part of the original cap structure, but you have expenses going back 3 years to your certificate of occupancy. PACE loans will pay dollar for dollar on all your past expenses, everything that has to do with energy. The envelope of the building, the roofing on the building, the windows on the building, the electrical, the HVAC, anything that has to do with upgrading that building's energy envelope and reducing carbon footprint is what we do. That's why our loans are, you know, less inexpensive. That's where a PACE loan comes in. So we tend to be this really sort of niche-y type of loan that's open into the market. And because we're balance sheet lenders, we get to choose and pick who we'd like to do business with. So we'll talk about PACE going forward. So Ken, let me come back to you. You saw what we all saw today in terms of the quarter point rise. You know, it's been a feeling on Wall Street and Bloomberg and everything that I've read today and saw last night that it really looks like this could be the last hurrah, that from now on, it's going to be no more increases. They'll hold the line at this quarter point. There won't be any more beyond this. And then you might start to see, you know, a reduction. Is that your feeling, storage PACE, or don't you care because you just have institutional money behind you?
Well, a little bit of both. I'm actually very pleased with the way interest rates have gone up, which would be counterintuitive. But 3 years ago, you could go to your local bank and borrow 90% of the cost of building a new storage facility at 3.5% and put 10% down and build something the market didn't need or want and screw up the entire market for everybody who's already there. Today, you got to put 50% down. You can borrow that money at 7.5 or 8. And the deal doesn't pencil, and those knuckleheads are gone. So we're going to see a significant drop in the unnecessary new construction and hence the softening of certain markets. So I'm very positive about the rate change. And the first part of your question, most of our clients are institutional or high net worth family offices. And for the most part, we do everything all cash.
So talk to me a little bit about Dallas. Let's talk about Dallas or Dallas-like MSA. I know
Sure.
the MSA, you know, market where you have market statistics, let's do market studies, and let's really learn. Tell us the one or two for the family offices that are listening today, what MSAs you really like and where you think storage not only is good today, but has legs for the next 18 to 36 months?
Sure. Well, again, we're not necessarily looking at the next 18 to 36 months. We're looking a little further out. To buy that vacant Kmart today and convert it takes a year to a year and a half. And then it takes 2.5 to 3 years to lease it to stabilized occupancy, because you're leasing one unit at a time, 100 square feet. You're not leasing floors or 3 floors. You're leasing one little box. But once it's fully leased, they cash flow like there's no tomorrow. Let me give you a simple numerical example. If you look at what I call the 4 basic food groups: office, retail, commercial, and who did I forget? Residential, multifamily. It typically takes about 65% occupancy at so-called street or posted rates to simply pay the cost of running that asset as a business. Site salaries, taxes, utilities, insurance, landscaping, the whole thing. If you add typical debt of about 60-65%, assuming it's not at 20% a year, you're going to add about 25 basis points. And so what you need now is 90% occupancy. So when you see packages from the brokerage community, they're always projecting 95, 97, 98, 100% occupancy, add on forever. And everybody found out very rudely the last 3 years that doesn't work. I'm sitting in a 16-story office building that's half empty. You can throw hand grenades in the parking lot and not hurt anything. So let's take storage for a second now. We have 2 employees. We use minimal utilities. It takes about 40% occupancy to hit cash flow break even from expenses. If you add the same debt, because the debt doesn't know if it's on an apartment house, a shopping center, or industrial building, you have the same debt, same 25 basis points, you're now at 65% occupancy to hit cash flow break even after debt service. So in our business, 85% is considered stabilized. If you get to 90, you should have more money in the bank account at the end of each month. You get too much above 90, and what that tells me is you're not doing a very good management job.
So you should.
You can raise the rents every single month. And if you're at 98% occupancy, it means you got a bunch of people that aren't paying what they should. Raise the rents and either force everybody to pay a few bucks more, or let them move, because at that occupancy level, you can backfill that space pretty readily. So it's a great business. And for many, many, many years, we were kind of in the shadows. We were considered non-institutional quality. If you couldn't do real estate, you did storage. Well, if you take any 5, 10, 15, 20-year period, any, and you look at all the different REIT categories put out by NAREIT, all of them, guess who's always number 1 or number 2 in total return?
Right.
We are the tortoise in the hare and tortoise race. We never win a lap, but we always win the race.
Did you ever buy any of Art Linkletter's properties? I know that he was very big into storage when he was on television, and he was.
Yeah, I knew that. I didn't ever meet the man, and I don't remember where his stores were. I think they were mostly around in the greater LA market, but I'm not familiar with his.
That was the first time I think I was introduced to storage, was when we heard about him dying, and they started to rip apart his portfolio, and they realized that 90% of his assets were in storage, and that was sort of the first time for me about 30 years ago that I realized what an amazing asset class. So Kassie,
You did well.
absolutely. So Kassie, let me turn to you. Some things I'm thinking about, and I know we're right here in California. Talk a little bit about what you're seeing in your business, either in Los Angeles or up in San Francisco, or maybe down in Newport Beach or San Diego. How is California sort of reacting to what it is that you do in either master plan developments, or I know in some instances you represent hotel owners who might be repositioning a property, or might be repositioning an asset. How does California play into your scheme of things at KS Global?
So, California we don't have any current projects in California. And that is just because there's not the opportunity, but that's just because of what our business model is right now. But California has done a great job of, I think, look, the conversion market is huge here. Okay, and that's really what is, especially the opportunities that they've with zoning. So they've changed and skewed the zoning a little bit now to have the opportunities to do the office space conversions into multifamily, taking single family and rezoning it to, you could do, attached housing. So I think that, and hotels conversion to multifamily. Now, you know, that's huge, and that kind of morphs into what we do. We've been doing conversions for the last 3 years, hotel to multifamily. But we've looked at more than we've done. Because usually, you know, when you're going into feasibility or due diligence and you're putting pen to paper and looking to see if it makes a lot of sense. It depends on the asset, you know, it really does, because as I heard earlier, you know, those conversions, a lot of people discount because it's too much work. You know, you've got to put plumbing in and shared walls. And so it really, you have to look at, obviously, if it makes a lot of sense, you know, cost wise. But that I would say California is really capitalizing on now, you know, especially with a lot of these older buildings or the commercial space and retail, but office space that's really, that's lagging.
So let me move over to you, Michael. You and I we sort of talked this week, and last week you were telling a really interesting story about a bankruptcy, Bed Bath & Beyond, and problems in the paper and the way that they had to use it to pay their mortgages, and they were selling off assets. Talk a little bit about that story. I think the family offices, you know, really want to get behind some of these big headline stories, and from maybe your standpoint, give us a little bit of light on how a Bed Bath & Beyond gets in so much trouble and how they use their assets to pay rent.
Well, I mean, I was not really involved with the retail business that they ran, and what I was involved with was a note sale where they had sold a property in the west side of LA where I handled the sale for them 5 or 6 years ago, and they took back a note, and they saw that note within the past year as an opportunity to realize some cash and pay their vendors to stay in business for a little while. So I handled the note sale. You know, but I suppose that it you know, was a distressed asset sale because it was sold at a discount. And that presents an opportunity. It was, the note was bought by a private equity firm. That I think there is family money in that business. Bought at a discount. And, you know, again, there's many legal issues involved to try to make the deal safe or reasonable from the seller standpoint or from the buyer standpoint. We worked it out. It was a stressful situation. It had to get done very quickly, but it did get done. And in terms of the other assets they're selling off, I'm not involved too much in those. So
explain that story you were telling me on the phone where we talked about they were using some of the, you know, I guess the asset itself, they were a down round on the sale, but they took some of that money and then used it to pay rent just to stay afloat for a while. Explain that little transaction right there, because I think that's just so interesting for a family office to see that with a large property, you can still keep your head above water for a little bit longer.
Well, I'm not sure exactly, you know, where the cash was used. I mean, I think that they used it to pay vendors who were selling them merchandise. Maybe they used some of it to pay rent, or maybe not. Maybe they just, you know, stopped paying their landlords. But you know, that they're an example. I mean, there are many others before them of retailers who were very successful for many years, and then times change, and you know, it's especially due to Amazon. A lot of retailers have experienced problems lately. So I think retail is probably one of the weakest property markets right now, is from what I'm seeing.
Well, let me switch over to you, Roger. I know Marty loves distressed real assets. I know he likes the asset class. That's something that, you know, he and a lot of family offices are looking at. Give us a feel in your business, what you're seeing, you know, family offices when they come to you, or maybe you're being opportunistic. Talk a little bit about, you know, distressed real estate, how to take advantage of it, what you're looking at, which markets you're going to, and you know, how do you play that a little smarter as a family office, as an investor?
Sure. Well, we're focused in New York, being in New York. It's obviously a big market. It's somewhat different than other parts. What I would say is the bottom line, it ultimately comes down to basis, right? So if you think you can get that you can get access to the deal sort of below replacement costs or at some basis that makes sense, whether through the debt or short sale, etc. That's really what it comes down to. I think with in the office market right now, to a certain extent retail, but retail's had a hard time for a while now. So I think retail's sort of been through some troubles. But with the office market, I think ultimately, if you're going to keep it as office, you've got to worry about when rents are rolling, because usually they're longer term leases, and you've got to worry about what cap rates are going to be as those rents are rolling, and are those tenants going to re-up for the whole amount and all of that. So I think right now everyone sort of has a.
I, as a family office, do business with you, and I'm thinking distressed debt. I'm thinking distressed assets. How do I do business with you?
Sure. Well, I think a part of it is, look at it as an advisor. We have Oak Branch Advisors, for instance, which does, I don't know, I think they've done something like $30 trillion worth of advisory work, or $38 trillion of advisory work, or 38 trillion of assets, I guess they've advised on. So any valuation exercise have capability to do that. For operators, it's obviously we can raise debt and equity, and then we're going to be having our own plays, our own sort of strategies that we're going to be going out to the market for, and I think that's probably the most direct way.
Okay, good. So let me come back to you, Ken. I know in your business, you just alluded to it, in your opening about, local zoning laws where, building boards are getting out of control and they don't want you in the area. It's not a very pretty asset when it sits on the corner of a very highly trafficked, visible street in a very nice neighborhood. Nobody really wants a storage facility there. Do you really think that boards are getting out of trouble and are getting you into trouble, and they're making your life difficult? How do you get around that, and how do you stay in business in a really nice neighborhood with a storage facility?
Well, a lot of municipalities, you can take where you're sitting right now, Los Angeles, has a moratorium on zone changes for self-storage. So if you want to build a self-storage facility in the county of LA, you either have to find a piece of dirt that's already zoned that you can afford to buy, or if it has an asset on you, you can afford to scrape, or you don't do it in LA County. They just don't want them. Miami has the same thing, and there's all kinds of little cities around America doing that, because cities historically live off sales tax, whereas school districts and counties live off property tax. We don't pay any sales tax, with the exception of 4 states, which do charge a small sales tax on the rent. So we're just not their favorite use. So when we go in and take that vacant big box retail store that's been vacant for 6 years and has 6-foot tall weeds and broken glass and graffiti everywhere, and homeless camps and drug manufacturing facilities on the weekends, and say we're going to convert it, they get a little more receptive to doing a zoning change. But it's not a laydown by any means. But the areas we want to go are typically where the cities don't want us. And again, when you say self-storage, you think about something that's what we call first generation, built back in the 70s, which are a bunch of long rectangular metal buildings, courtesy of my friend's Public Storage, all painted orange, cyclone fencing, concertina wire on top, dead cars parked everywhere, and a couple of Rottweilers running around at night howling at the moon as security. You couldn't get a permit to build that anywhere in America today. The stuff we build today looks like an office building or a shopping center or a multifamily, multi-story apartment house. They're gorgeous. You can't tell what they are unless you see the sign. We don't have a whole bunch of doors, rolled up doors sitting out there on the street. You'd never get a building permit for that today in any city you want to be in. So the industry has changed. And the mom and pops that have one little store out in the middle of my favorite city, Nose Pick, Arkansas. I don't know if there really is such a place, but if there isn't, there should be. That's a whole different genre. That's like comparing a brand new Mercedes to a 10-year-old used Kia.
Right. And I can see why the institutions come to you, because, you're a long duration assets. I've got pensioners, I've got, I don't know, any type of a Taft-Hartley fund, who's got long duration money for their pensioners, they're coming to you because they see you as a long duration asset. So I think we
Well,
all,
actually, that's not totally the case. With our high net worth family offices, they are very long-term holders because they're taxable.
Right.
So every 5, 6, 7, 8 years, depending on the market, we simply refinance them. And pull out all, a big chunk of their equity and they still get to keep them. That's a non-taxable event. The pension funds are not taxable. And they're typically driven by IRRs. The guy in charge of the real estate section for the state of Texas fund wants to be able to show big high IRRs to his board. So he gets more assets, more authority, more title, more pay, because he doesn't own any of these. He's an employee. So they tend to sell in 4 to 6 years because if you're IRR driven, time is your biggest enemy on that calculation. And if you double the asset's value in 5 years, the IRR is X. And if you do it in 10 years, it's 50% of X. So the institutions tend to sell in 4 to 6 years. The family offices and the grandkids will die with them.
got it. Okay, no, thank you very much for making that statement. So Kassie, let me turn back to you. Let's talk development projects. What are you working on? Which states or cities are, like in Ken's problem, don't want big master plan developments, and which states and cities do? And then again, if I'm a family office and I'm sitting with $100 million that I need to deploy towards real estate for my $1 billion portfolio, say 10% of it, how do I do business with you?
So I'm trying to diversify our portfolio right now. So we have, we've got 4 projects that are key projects that are trying to push over the edge. Florida, we're there. And then I think, and really it's more of a mindset now for diversification. We have, I wouldn't typically have done this or looked at it maybe a year ago, but we've got single family, multifamily in Syracuse, Micron's coming. So values went up 50%.
When did you hear Micron was coming?
About 8 months ago.
Okay.
However, like everyone, they waited till it was actually, public notice. And so then investors went grab land, right? So until they decided, Micron decided where they were going to go. So now all this land, we've got, land grabbers or land brokers, and they're looking for developers. So we have one we're looking at now. We're in negotiations on acquisition on the land, but I went to him and said, look, you need this, we need this, entitled or blah, blah, blah. So we, and then I talked to the city officials yesterday in Syracuse and said, what incentives are you giving developers and how are you giving us, obviously there's a need, how should we? So those kind of projects that I'm trying to look at, we've got our Bahamas, our Caribbean's booming. And
Tell people in the room, because you and I talked about this before, why is the Caribbean booming? And talk about how do I get there and how do I know what's the right place to stay? I mean, Caribbean's always sexy, it's always fun, it's always on a cruise boat, somebody organizes a trip. How do we know to get to your master plan development and how do you know that's the right place?
Well,
Caribbean's tricky.
It is to a lot of people. And frankly, family offices in the US, especially ones that have been, that are very, been on for a long time, they find it risky. Because,
Right.
and it's not so much risky as it's there's a lot of hoops to jump through with government. Going down there, and I'm going to write about this because going down there was an entirely different experience. When I went down, sat with the Prime Minister, actually talked to it, saw the locals, and understood what we had to do to make it easy for us to develop down there. There's so many opportunities, and they really are. So there's so many good things about but you have to really want to develop or want to really understand how to work with the government. Okay, and it's a little bit more expensive. So that's why when we have our development plan, we go and we sit with the government and say, what can we do for you? So we also fit that into how it's going to be attractive to family offices, to any lenders and the capital markets to get it done. So how we can build that capital stack. So again, renewable energy,
Storage.
medical, storage, but there's a lot of things in the Caribbean that are much more attractive. Cannabis
Golf,
is attractive.
arenas, right?
Right. So the amenities at a lot of, that's that add value.
Got
That's that value driven on top of a residential component, okay? So anyway, back to, we've always had people come to me because they know we have sexy projects, right? We
What kind of
have that
projects?
275 acres with with the marina. We look at every market differently. In Florida, that marina is our golden ticket. So, you know, but then I really need to diversify to really target
Family office.
other things that would be like the Onondaga and the Syracuse project and some of the other ones. We have
And deals are getting done?
just getting done. We have 2 in Hawaii. And I can tell you the influx of people that are reaching out to me to say, do you need funding? Do you need lending? And now just the volume is turned up with family offices that we're talking to. We were targeting sovereign and
Sovereign
family
wealth
office.
funds?
Yeah, I mean, for the last 2 years, I've started looking at alternative lending prior to even COVID. But now the influx to them reaching out to me and saying, I've got a family office. This is their sweet spot. What do you have? It's doubled. So I'm really excited about this, and I see it's an opportunity, and we seem to really be headed in a great direction.
So
to get
let
everything.
me move to you, Michael. You and I, when we were talking a few times last week, and we've heard this so many times today, office and retail is in trouble. Industrial and offices are going to be knocked down, right? Just knock them down. That's what's in vogue. But then you said biotech, is coveted, and there's other asset classes that are coveted. Address that, because I thought that was an interesting moment you and I had.
Well, I mean, I'd say medical and biotech are also a strong asset class. That leasing remains strong in medical office. Biotech, I've done several deals in the last couple of years, and there just seems to be a lot of strength there. The tenant improvement build outs on these biotech spaces is very expensive, but people, the money is there to build it out. So, I think that's one of the strong asset classes in Southern California, along with industrial. When you were saying the knockdowns, I'm seeing that mostly in suburban office, 2 and 3 story office. People are buying that, knocking it down and building 1-story industrial.
Let me ask a different question. Are deals getting done? I'm a family office. I come to you. You've been on retainer. I'm either in trouble or not in trouble, but I'm doing business. Are deals getting done today? Do you find a lot of roadblocks? Are real estate deals getting done?
I'd say yes, they are. Maybe not. I don't know how to put it. Maybe not as many as 2 or 3 years ago that were heavily leveraged deals, but I'd say that for people who are strong hands, have strong hands, a lot of cash, I think there's more opportunity now than there was 2 or 3 years ago. Prices have come down. Construction costs have stopped rising at extreme levels. It's more rational. You can get your contractor to negotiate.
Nice.
I'd say, yeah, for select situations, they are going forward.
That's important. So Roger, let me turn to you. Tell us some success stories, right? We all like to know money's being made out there. So, you're in New York. Babe Ruth was in New York. He was knocking them out. The last 5 years where people thought, wow, I should have really gone in, to that deal with them. Give us 2 really big success stories.
Yeah, I mean, I would say sort of to the point that was made before, you have the MOB and or biotech. I think the saying is niches equal riches, right? So any niche, MOB, the biotech, self-storage is a big winner, and then.
Did you have the success? I want to hear what your firm had in its success. What was some of your big home runs?
Yeah, it's actually a lot of over the last couple of years actually wasn't in real estate. It was in the venture world. So a couple of consumer tech plays, consumer finance plays in tech ended up doing pretty good.
Marty has a question for you. I think we're just for the panel.
I have a question for each one of you. Tell me a deal that you love that you're doing right now.
All right, Ken, you're
A
first.
deal
Go
that
get
you
'em.
love, it's gotta be one deal, not a set of deals, one deal. Why do you love it? Doesn't have to be the highest IRR, just you have to love it for a reason.
Ken, what's your one deal and why do you love it?
Well, in the last, in 2021 and 2021, Congress created the Opportunity Zone situation where you could get some significant tax benefits if you followed the rules. And we did with one of our partners, $100 million fund, which they thought we couldn't raise. I mean, they raised the money, we did the properties. And they oversold it, so we had to do it up to 150. And then they started another one, did another 100. So in the space of 18 months, we did $250 million of new assets, all self-storage, all vacant buildings of different kinds all over the country that we're now in the process of converting into storage. And that'll be a 10-year hold to maximize the benefits. And when they're full, which should be in about 4 years, we'll go back in and finance them out about 90% and still have only a 50% debt to equity ratio, give the investors back all their money, still own them, still maximize the tax benefits, and everybody will be very fat, dumb, and happy, thanks to our Opportunity Zone program.
When you do refinance, please give me a call. I'd love to chat with you.
Okay.
What location do you love the most?
Location, number one location you love the most.
Who you talking to?
Two.
You
Me?
can.
Oh, okay. I'm not in love with any location. Where we're having our greatest luck, oddly enough, is in the Midwest and the upper Midwest. Properties in Wisconsin, properties in Michigan, properties in Illinois, properties in Western Pennsylvania, in New Jersey, that are in the major MSAs, but they're the suburbs where the people live. And especially with people working from home now, and it's going to be hard to get them to come back to the office in many cases. So our business has gone great there.
Kassie, I'm going to turn it over to you. Deals you love the most that you've been involved in and best locations.
One deal.
One deal.
It's my Florida project.
All right, let's hear it.
It's a legacy project. And I have to say 2 years ago when I looked at it and I was thinking of Southwest Florida and now I love what it's going to do. It's part of the redevelopment plan for Southwest Florida and Fort Myers. It's going to make a huge amount of difference and change to the whole demographic. And it's a legacy project. So I get a lot of heart. I fall in love with that. And it's going to make a lot of money, but it's going to change the whole demographic.
How many homes are we talking about?
We're entitled for 1,500 multifamily. And that also is branded residence. We have Hyatt Regency we had down there. So we've got a combination. And then, we've got marina, 200 slip, a marina. Now those are gold. We've got all of our slip credits. And right now you can't get marina space. So that, and a golf course. So
when you sell the property, are you going to keep the marina and sell just the properties themselves? Are you going to split the asset?
So what we're going to do is we're going to own the land. And then we'll joint venture like 1,500 is a big number. And so we're looking right now, talking to several developers who maybe want to take on 500 or 1,000 of that.
Condos.
And in the condo space now, we have a river walk where we're putting, like 200 plus, which we branded under a flag. Will be service condo hotel, still condos. And I'm doing 90% sellable real estate, and then we're putting them back into a rental program. So again, and then we've got private, we've got golf course, marina. So we might, I'll also partner with a marina operator.
I live a good amount of the time in what I like to call, in South Florida, what I call the pickleball capital of the world. And they have
pickleball on.
And they have separated the some really smart guys who built homes and apartments in the 50s and 60s. They separated the asset. So all these condominiums, they
Yes.
all had canal access
Correct.
but the owner, the builder kept all the water assets,
Yes.
but sold off the condos. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a strategy
Well,
or what.
it-
I think it's a smart thing to
It's
do.
gonna be leasehold and absolutely, but if we own the land, obviously, and we will do that, I'm sure. Like I said, right now, I think just getting it out of the ground, we wanna partner with a really big developer on that to make sure that we do it cost effectively. And then we can sell those assets off. And basically, we're looking for to co-develop on that. Well, they will be an investor as well.
Does the hurricane impact what
It
happened?
did not impact us at all. None of our.
Where is the location of Florida?
So we're a protected marina, and it's in Fort Myers. So when the Coast Guard came out, they were surprised, but they said, you're protected. So nothing, we really had very little.
I think it was Clearwater that got hit the hardest.
Yeah, well, Clearwater, Sarasota area and Fort Myers, but really more the coastal. And so we're looking at assets on the coast now that are closed, that aren't on the market, but going to obviously owners and saying, look. So anyway, but that project is going to change Fort Myers.
Got about 2 minutes.
Yep, Michael, I'm gonna come to you. Favorite project, something that you worked on where it's like, wow, hit it out of the park and your clients were so
You have to
happy.
love it.
And talk about maybe a location or a deal you were involved in.
Well, I mean, the one that came to mind is one I'm involved in now, which is very interesting to me. I mean, the deals I've done, it's old news, you know.
Yeah, okay.
So I've got one now that's 3 large high-rise towers here in downtown LA. Was constructed by Chinese developers. They ran out of money. It isn't finished. So.
Can't hear anybody. Is there someone's messing with the volume?
You're quickly,
You're back.
Yeah, sorry, I lost you for a little bit there.
No, Roger, a deal that you love. Roger?
go ahead.
Yeah, actually, the deal I love right now is actually our trade finance deal. Financing commodities out of Latin America, counter-cyclical. It's proven itself through COVID. Everyone needs to eat. That's the thing I'm focused on right at the moment.
Got it. Got it. So, for myself and the panel, and again, I want to thank, Marty and IvyFON, and most importantly, Buckholter. Thank you very much for hosting us today. And I'm going to turn it back to Marty. You have some closing comments and then introduce our next